Okay, good to go.
All right. So, so just kind of going through these bullet points,
Sounds good.
life and DAT talk. So, like, what's been a struggle? What's been beneficial?
My struggle has been, I would definitely say, especially last month. So the way swimming works is me and Ethan are on swimming. If you know Ethan, he's a second year. And one person for a month works the morning and the other person works the afternoon, and then we switch. So the first month I was on, the month of September, I was on mornings, which means I leave and go home at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I have the rest of the day off. So that was perfect. I had all this time to get homework done. I was always kind of on top of things. But then last month I was doing afternoons. So October I would have to like leave at, or I would get here on campus 8 or 9 and then not be done until, maybe get home at 4:35, which still isn't terrible. But those big chunks of time, which usually for me to get assignments done, I like to start and finish in a time period. I'm not very good at like getting something started and then coming back to it. So my struggle was not having those big chunks of time to just get homework done. And so last month was hard. I felt like I was behind a lot and I wasted a lot of days like where I could have just started assignments and gotten them rolling, but ended up doing a lot of assignments on Sunday right before they were due. So that was my biggest struggle. I'm back to mornings, which I'm hoping this week has been a little better and I'm getting used to the sleeping pattern again. So I'm a little tired, but that has kind of been what I've tried to balance better and finding time to do homework. I need to get better at, like you were saying, like block off time to get it done rather than just say, oh, I'll do it later. And then life gets in the way. Right. So,
yeah.
But you?
I mean, gosh, this past month and really this next week is just, I'm preparing for a Katie site visit. So I have been doing our own site visits, like prepping our preceptors and our clinical sites. So going out to them.
They're coming to you. I see.
Yeah. So I've been traveling out to my clinical sites, prepping the preceptors over the past week. And like that just takes time. I have to do it when they're available, which is in the afternoons, right before, sports start. And just the stress that comes with that. It's a lot of documentation. It's, prepping stuff for the site visitors, the stuff that they want, which we already have, but getting it organized in the fashion that they want it. It's time consuming and it doesn't allow me to really focus on, schoolwork and then teaching. I think that my biggest struggle is that my teaching has not been what it should be. So like I have a hard time finding time to grade, because it's like, okay, I have this window of time free. What do I want to do? Work on homework that directly affects me or grade stuff that students really want back?
Yeah.
And I always side with the DAT.
Yeah, right?
I just know how
so much more important. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So I'm trying to find ways, and like I teach a research methods class, so I'm in the middle of kind of coordinating everybody else's research proposals. So I'm trying to give them feedback. I'm like,
and writing your own.
Yeah, and it's like I have to write my own, and mine's a different approach than theirs. Theirs is more of the traditional chapters 1, 2, and 3 right now.
Yeah.
And ours is completely different. So like I can't even translate what I'm doing to them, other than we share the common struggle. So like I just, I've gone in there a couple times. I'm like, we're all in this together, man. Like, when I was writing specific aims and significance, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be here to teach next week. I feel like I'm gonna die. And they at least maybe appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, and then family life, like carving pumpkins last weekend. We didn't do till the day before Halloween. I felt bad, but I had all this stuff to do.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know how you guys do it. You and like Jared and Lacey with a family. Like, I have enough trouble just keeping my fiance at bay while I do homework. Like, hey, go play video games or go do something else, right? I just need time to myself right now. And I don't know how you do it with kids, because you can't just tell kids, like, go play on your own.
Yeah. I mean, my wife definitely, she keeps them preoccupied. My 2-year-old doesn't know any different. So I literally can tell my 2-year-old, like, go play. And it doesn't affect her. My 6-year-old, on the other hand, when she gets like emotional and upset, she's learning to like throw that kind of stuff back at you to make you feel bad, like that guilt trip. So she'll be like, you're always busy, you're always doing homework, and like that hurts. That really
right?
hurts.
It's like a shot to the heart.
Yeah, which is why I'm doing this DAT now, so she's not like 16 and saying, I hate you. I want to run away with my boyfriend.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
so,
I can't imagine raising girls. I've always said, like, I hope I have a bunch of boys, because I can't emotionally handle girls. Like, the stress of that fact that they might run away with their boyfriend or get pregnant. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's so that weighs heavy on me. The good thing is I do have time. Now that prep work is done, our site visit is next week.
Mm-hmm.
So at least that prep work is done. And I can just, I was telling somebody when we were talking about the work-life balance, when we were doing that group discussion, one thing that I have the benefit of that a lot of you guys don't is, aside from my teaching responsibilities, which are already set hours, I teach the same classes, I can carve out time. So like when I have a big significant section to write, I can just tell my boss, since I don't have sporting assignments, I don't have clinical responsibilities, I can say, like, when I'm done teaching at noon, boom, I'm going home or I'm going to the library, and I can devote all of my time to that. I don't have any, I think about like clinical practice, like if you can try to carve out time, but what happens when somebody gets a concussion or has to go to the hospital, or, like Sean earlier in the semester was stuck on the East Coast for like 9 days.
Yeah.
Like that just throws a wrench. I don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I guess the most beneficial is, like, I really enjoy the material that we learn. I think it's beneficial, and I have the opportunity to pass it on to students immediately.
Right.
So as I learn this stuff, I try to give them little snippets of that, which I like, and it helps me retain the information and learn it a little bit better.
Right. It's like a lot of people, I think, in this program, you're like, how is this, especially AT educator? Like, I think I've talked to Riley a little bit, and some of the GAs that are here in town, and like we've talked about how does this really apply to us? We're not actually teaching. Like, the information that you can take and use immediately, like in undergrad, you learned how to eval an ankle, and then you went out to your clinical site and did it right away. Right. So like, I think that's really cool that you get to do that, like those kind of things, and just the overall arching topics that we're learning, that you can kick them straight to use. Like, you can use them right away, whereas some of us are like, information. Like, I love AT educator. It makes me want to go teach. Like, I can teach my students, but I want to like get into a classroom, because that's really cool, and that's what I'd like to do in the future. So that's awesome.
I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I feel like that's part of why this is in the curriculum, because I think as we all become DATs, like, the expectation is that you're going to be eligible, or you're going to be in positions where you're going to have opportunities to teach.
Right. And that's why I'm doing it. Like, that's what I want. I didn't think a PhD was for me. I didn't want to do like these massive amounts of research, but I wanted to be able to be eligible to teach. Whereas like, I know some of our classmates they're just probably going to continue clinical practice or something like that.
So I feel like this is preparing you for what you don't know lies ahead.
Yeah. Right.
That
absolutely,
somewhere along the lines, you're going to be put in a position where you may be asked to teach, and we need to improve based on what I've seen. Like, we need to improve the educators that are teaching, myself included. Like, I am a self-taught educator. Like, I have no formal training.
Yeah.
I never wanted to teach, but I got myself into a position where there was a teaching opportunity. And now that I'm learning all this stuff, like, I've been approaching it all wrong. So
That's
if
crazy.
we want, the DAT is supposed to strengthen athletic trainers as clinicians, but one way we do that is through educating others. So DATs are going to educate others, have higher expectations, know more information, and pass that on to other athletic trainers. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so how do we break culture? Oh man, and I feel like that's probably more for a question for you being in clinical practice.
Culture, huh?
I think like our day-to-day routine, how we practice, how we break the things that we hate about our job.
Yeah. So I think for me, being at Indiana State, the GAs that are in the DAT dominate the people that aren't. So for here, it's a lot easier. I feel like I get a free pass a little bit. I can do some interesting things and nobody's gonna, like, I can do a bunch of different stuff and nobody's gonna question me. If anything, they're like, cool, you're incorporating something from class. They recognize that. Like our athletic trainers that are full staff that are here, they will be like, oh, is that for class? And we're like, yeah, it's something that we're learning and I want to incorporate. And they're like, awesome, right? Whereas in other settings, that doesn't happen. Yeah. Like I can imagine somebody that is in a high school and they're doing all this new stuff, and another athletic trainer that they are either working with or whatever will be like, why are you doing that? Like, that's dumb. Like, I think patient-rated outcomes is one of those things that is like that. People don't understand the worth. If you haven't learned about it, haven't had a class about it, you don't get why, because it gives no immediate feedback. Like, it's kind of something you build, and you see how their progress is over time. And it's not something that provides direct feedback into your practice, I suppose. It's not like Graston, oh, they immediately feel relief, something like that. So I feel like with that, it's a lot easier here because nobody's ever questioning really why I'm doing these new things. Culture-wise, we still struggle with some of our athletic trainers being a little more traditional. I think it was one of our collabs last week where Riley was talking about having multiple treatments per day and then like treating on the bus, the work-life balance thing. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. So that is something that on and some of the juniors that work football, they're like, it's so dumb. And we ask him and we bring up, the athletic trainer that does this. We bring it up to him and he's like, this is just the way it is. It's like, that can be really frustrating that our undergrad students here are seeing some of our staff members do that stuff when we've been telling them, like GAs and all the educators here have been telling them how dumb that is. Like, this is what not to do. And then our staff members are doing it. So, I don't know how to break that culture, of saying, oh, this is just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, with the DAT, for people who don't know what it is, their first question is, well, like, is that going to make you, like, how does that make you a better athletic trainer? Or what's the worth of the DAT? And I think the barrier for you and I and the rest of our DAT classmates is we've got to find a way to educate our own people, our own clinicians, about what the DAT provides without making them scared, which may be a really tough objective, because I think it's pretty well ingrained in athletic training culture to already be, and I mentioned this in a couple of assignments, like I feel like we have an inferiority complex. Like we're not physical therapists, and all we spend a lot of time saying we do the same things as them. That's no big deal. Or if you talk about somebody who has a DPT, athletic trainers, I've heard a number of them say they are, it's not a real doctor. They're not a real doctor.
And now we're getting that. Like now our profession is doing it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to be scary. Like we as DAT clinicians, we're going to be a threat, or we're going to be we're going to be a perceived threat to these clinicians. And I think they're going to fight back with trying to disprove what you're doing, or giving you excuses on how this cannot be implemented, that they know better. They've got 20 to 30 years of experience, and they know. And I think a lot of that just comes from the fact that this is scary. Like they don't know what it is. So I kind of equate it to one of the assignment for Dr. E's class, the Circle of Ignorance journal that we have to write. I did that last night. It's like, I think we do have this circle of ignorance in our profession about different professions, including ourselves. And I think it's going to be really scary if we don't approach it the right way, that our own clinicians could end up turning on us. Yeah. Because they will be the ones to go around and be like, yeah, he's got a DAT, but he's no different than me.
Yeah.
McCall, yeah, she's got the DAT, but she's only been a practicing athletic trainer for less than a year. Yeah. That I have 30 years of experience. You cannot learn in 2 years what I know in 30. Right. And that devalues the entire profession. And absolutely. So I think with anything new, I'm sure physical therapy went through the same thing. I'm sure pharmacy went through the same thing. When you go to these doctoral degrees, for everybody else that doesn't have it, it's kind of like jealousy, being envious, and just being ignorant to, well, I don't know what it is, and I'm just going to put my guard up and hope that I'm right, and everybody else will come back down, and soon the DAT will be gone, and we can get back to practicing how we've practiced for the last 50 years.
And that's dangerous to be in that thought process of, well, let's just keep doing it. It's working, but it's not working because we're not increasing wages. Like we're still struggling with that. We're not being able to provide or charge for our services, right? None of that has changed. They thought it was going to change in the 80s? Like there was like this push in the 80s and 90s when we got licensure, that soon, like a lot of states were doing licensure, and soon we'd be able to charge for our services, but it never happened.
Right.
Like, so I worked with a guy in Arizona when I was getting my master's that he started this business, and it's like he had an exercise science degree, but he was an athletic trainer. So he provides athletic training services, but mainly is like fitness, like a personal trainer practically. And he thought when he opened this business back in the 80s that, oh, we just got licensure, soon I'll be able to charge for my services, like as in the modalities he provides and stuff. And it never happened.
Yeah.
It's kind of stagnant because he can't ever really improve. He just has to bring in more clients that are willing to pay him to work them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all because we haven't shown that what we do is beneficial to patients.
Exactly.
And, I try, a couple people have asked me, we had some friends over last weekend, and he was asking me about the DAT, and he asked that straight up question. He's like, so what does this mean? Like, what do you learn? What do you learn in there? Because you're not like learning new evaluation skills and new modalities. He's like, so what are you learning? And I tried to temper my delivery because I didn't want to go off, because I feel like we are all so passionate about this, and we have this large amount of information that I could really talk somebody into the ground about this stuff to the point where they would just be annoyed. Right. So I tried to temper it, but I tried to connect. Like, yeah, we all want paid more money. we all want to be more respected in the healthcare community, but we want to do those two. We want those two things to happen without us doing anything, without changing,
without working harder or being smarter. Yeah.
We want everybody to come to us. We're not, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And so that's why I try to make that connection. Like, oh yeah, we all complain about we don't get third-party reimbursement, but what are you doing at the high school to document your injuries? And can you translate that information, that documentation, into useful data to give to your boss or insurance to show that you are doing beneficial work? You say it's beneficial, but you don't really know that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I try to temper that because I get so worked up. Like I'm already worked up. But
just thinking about it gets you like your blood boiling.
Yeah.
I agree though. Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, it's going to be hard, but we cannot, as a DAT, I think one thing that separates us is we cannot give in to the perceived huge wall that is built up that we cannot knock down. If we do that, then we fall in.
So we're forging this path for that.
Yeah.
And so it gets really frustrating when I see some of our other DAD students not taking it maybe as serious or and I walk into Dr. E's office at the wrong times. But she'll be going on and on about how some of our classmates aren't completing assignments because they're only worth a point. Or, I understand I'm putting effort in, but they just straight up won't turn things in. So that makes me frustrated. I'm like, you don't understand what kind of weight is on your shoulders. You are the ones that is setting the path for the rest of our profession, and you got to take this serious, Do you ever see that petition that was going out over the summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was absolutely insane to me. Some of our alumni actually who did masters here, which I briefly knew or have met a couple times, were signing those petitions or putting it on their Facebook or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's just that is the closed-minded stuff that we need to get out of as a profession.
Well, and the other dangerous part about that example is how our society solicits information and how they interpret information, which is through social media. So that guy that started that petition, it got out on social media. And if we've learned anything from social media, it's people don't read the document.
Yeah, they see the headline and they assume.
See the headline and they see who posted it, and if they posted it, they take their information and they're like, oh, well, he put it up. I'm an athletic trainer. I'm going to go ahead and support him.
Yeah.
But it just and I think that petition was centered around seeing all the barriers that potentially may be there, not proven to be there, but potentially may be there. And I'm going to have to change so much about what I do in my approach that I think that's unfair for anybody to ask. So I would rather petition to stop it so we can slow down than to embrace it and say, hey, we're just going to have to change.
Yeah.
It just goes back to that. I want everything for myself, but I don't want to do anything to accomplish it.
Correct.
Frustrating.
Insane. Yeah, absolutely. That was crazy when all that was going out, and then the open forum was going on too. So a couple of my professors at AT Still were in charge of reading some of the open forum comments. And they were just, so that was interesting. When I went back for graduation, they were just kind of telling us some of the crap they would read was out of this world. What they would say about the changes that were going on in athletic training, and how they would say that it was just unfair that they were asking them to improve their practice, using those words. It's oh my gosh, what have you been doing? I just don't ever understand. It's asking, it's saying it's unfair that you're asking me to be a better person.
Yeah.
Almost,
it's almost like I get the attitude is more like, well, I'll get to decide. I should be able to decide whether I'm a better clinician or not, which is totally asinine. Like, your patients deserve you to be better. Like, and I'm sorry, we need to have checks and balances to make sure that that's happening.
Yep. We could go on for hours about this.
I got class at 11. Okay, so most difficult patient.
Okay, so right now I have a girl who has, so I have all freshmen, females, for the swim team, which is the most miserable thing I've ever done in my life. There's 16 of them, and it's just dumb. So we have one girl who came in. Her dad is a swim coach at the University of Kansas. Why she's at Indiana State Swimming? I'm like, why aren't you swimming for your dad? We don't know. She is currently, she had a syncope episode early on, like in the first couple weeks of practice. She was like, I thought it was blood sugar. And then she told me that it happened in the past where she has fainting spells and all of this, right? Mm-hmm. She didn't report it on her pre-participation physical, like on her medical history form, didn't say anything about it, and says it only happens when she's in really good shape. I'm like, okay, sure. So she was having all these issues. We referred her to our team physician, who said she's done until we get like testing to make sure there's not other issues going on. Like, she's done. And the shitstorm that happened from that just went crazy. Her parents were calling, freaking out that she wasn't swimming, and they just didn't get that, like, it's her heart. Like, this is so important, and we don't want her floating in the pool. Like, I'm not losing a patient because you're throwing a fit. Right. And so she was frustrated. It took like a couple of weeks to get all the testing done. And then finally found out it's, if you've ever heard of neurocardio, basically the blood pools in her legs when she's working out. And in order to get the blood back to her head, she faints or has to lay down. Usually she can catch it before she actually faints. And so that's what there's no way to manage it except for she has to hydrate and do all this stuff. So we struggled because I was getting a call from the parents every day. Like, they were harassing us, me and Ethan and our supervisor, Shelly. I don't know if you met her, but they were harassing us and saying, well, she's fine, and like didn't get it. Well, then they got the bill for all the testing because it's pre-existing. We don't pay for pre-existing conditions here at Indiana State. And $81 is all they had to pay from like 6 or 7 visits to the doctor, a tilt table test, all this stuff. And so we're just really struggling. She also has a terrible attitude and thinks we're just out to keep her out, because then a week after she came back, she got a concussion, which the symptoms are all the same, right? Like, similar, feeling dizzy and weak and like you're going to faint, and double vision, all this stuff are similar. And so that return to play was up and down. It took like 2 weeks to get her back because she kept having symptoms that were probably neurocardio syncope, but our team physician was like, you have to do no symptoms. So we really struggled there because she then was lying to us about everything. She was like, trying to keep her out. We don't want her to swim. We have something against her. But in reality, it was all directed by our physician. And so, that was a lot of stress because it was constant parents calling. I just stopped picking up the phone. I just didn't even answer. I was like, I don't have to tell you anything because your daughter is 18 years old. And just dealing with false reporting. At some point we were like, we just want her to go back to play and not deal with this ever again, because we was fighting every day with her. So,
that was, I mean, those parents, they're also the first ones that if their son or daughter dies during, they're suing you. They're going to be the next day. They will, so it's just it's frustrating to know that.
I was just, at some point I told our head, I was like, you know what? I'm not dealing with this girl anymore. Ethan, just see, and I'm like, because it's me and Ethan, he's the male, so he's a little less sympathetic. He has got a little less of the motherly thing, which for some reason I've become that mama bear to them, which I don't want it. I don't want to be that. And so, like, McCall, you need to be the one that's sympathetic with her and talks to her and communicates, because Ethan was starting to get a little frustrated. She was false reporting, like absolutely disrespecting us. And she's like, you need to do that. And I was like, you know what? I can't. You can take that on, because this is not, like, if I was a physician, if I was any other healthcare provider, we would have discharged her a long time ago and said, hey, seems like this isn't working out. You need to go to find another physician, right? So that's the frustrating thing I have about also our profession is, like, I'm here and we are in a thankless job, you know, for the most part, and a thankless profession. And I was putting in all this time to help her and really trying to understand, and she just kept shelling everything. Any problem she had, she would tell her parents, and then her parents would send an angry voicemail to me, and it was just like, okay, whatever.
I mean, my difficult, since I don't have patients anymore. Mine from last year just centered around parents, helicopter parents. So, and it's really common with freshmen. So the one I had last year, they also had a lot of money. And I feel like when you have a lot of money, sometimes you tend to feel like you know more than everybody else. So this girl got injured, and they went around me. So they never said to me, we don't like what you're doing. But that was essentially what they were saying by, having her come home one weekend and see their doctor. Well, even though she already saw our doctor and already had an x-ray, we had a good plan. They just thought that their doctor knew more than ours. They just don't, they're comfortable with that doctor. And they went around me, and so what we tell all of our athletes, like, for insurance purposes, like, if you go outside of what we tell you, that's on you. So you want to go get a second opinion without our knowledge, that you pay for that. We don't cover that. And that's what I told him. And it came down to, again, a phone call. And I always shut parents down. I made mistakes early in my career, especially for adult. It's a little different when you have minors. But with adult patients, I shut the parents out. So I can't. Communication breaks down. And I just told the student athlete, I'm going to talk to you. This is our approach. If you don't like it, here's your options. And they finally came around, but it was just the helicopter parent, like, trying to get your kid to think and speak for themselves is really important in healthcare. So I can't have you dictating what you think is best. So that was really the gist of it. I didn't really have a lot of difficult patients. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, I've started, we're doing like a healthcare model at Swimming and Diving where they have to make their own appointments to see us. And so I've also tried to train, like, all the parents that I do talk to as they come into town for meets and they want to talk to me or about something. I've just been telling them, like, when we go to doctor's appointments, I don't sit and talk for your daughter. To teach them a lot about how to work on their own. So I appreciate your help in encouraging them to do that, and to letting them to an extent take control of their life, because they're going to need this in 4 years when they're out on their own, So, and I think the parents usually appreciate that for the most part when I describe, like, hey, this may suck, like, your daughter's growing pains, like, and she's injured and it's frustrating, but if she looks at me about questions in a doctor's appointment, there's not a lot I'm going to say. Like, I'm going to ask some questions for myself. But if your daughter doesn't do it, like, I can't how to communicate. Like, one of my girls the other day was like, I was asking questions in the doctor's appointment what I thought you would say. I'm like, because her mom was so worried that she wouldn't get the information she needed. I'm like, come on, like, I don't know. It's kind of dumb, but
oh yeah,
help them adult a little bit, but it's, I don't think they get it.
Yeah, so I mean, like you had mentioned, I think one way to help curb this is kind of, I feel like we talk in circles a lot, but going back to like the improving our own practice helps this, because like you said, I think we are in a thankless job oftentimes, and I think we open ourselves up to be taken advantage of. You know, obviously doctors encounter very difficult patients. I'm not saying we are siloed, are different than anybody else, but I think the way that we are accessible opens us up to more difficult patients. Like, at least when I was an athletic trainer, I got, I had close interpersonal relationships with my athletes, especially, when I was working with one sport for over, I worked with baseball for 9 years. So I was the guy that everybody knew. You develop those relationships. They become so personal at times that they often muddy the water in patient clinician, and that can be really frustrating. I think it makes you an easy target to be taken advantage of.
Yes, for sure. And yeah, because we become their friend. So I'm in this situation where I'm the one that is their friend, and I kind of provide, hold on, let me plug this in. I provide the feel good stuff, like, hey, it's going to be okay. Let's talk about how you're feeling. And so then they think they're my friend.
Yeah.
And that's good and kind of bad. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that is really, it's counterintuitive sometimes. And unfortunately, when it happens late in somebody's career, like senior year, let's say they have an injury and they become difficult, because you have 4 years or 3 years of history with them where you've maybe just been their friend.
Yeah.
And then you have to be authoritative, and you've got to be the clinician. That can really throw up a wall in your communication. Right. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, so I think we got just about everything.
Yeah, I think so too. Some of those are a little more, but he said we didn't have to discuss all of it. So okay. I'm cool with that. And you can watch it. Let me know what you think, if there's anything else we need to add. But
yeah, I'll probably watch it later today, make some notes, and then put it in paragraph form. And then I'll try to, it'll be a Google Doc, so I'll send it to you.
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
Bye.